All right. Hi, everyone. This is Introduction to Web Archiving. I'm Matt Cruz. I'm head of collection services at the University of Florida's Special and Area Studies Collections Department. As part of my role, I manage our instance of Archivit, which is software that we use to create and manage our web archived collections. Just an agenda for this webinar. There's going to be a brief introduction to web archiving. And then we're going to go over some key terms related to web archiving, do a tools review and comparison with demos of some software, in particular Archivit and Conifer / web recorder, and then go over some considerations when planning a web archiving project or program. I'll share some additional resources if we have time. And then we'll go into an open discussion. So what is web archiving? Web archiving is the process of gathering data from portions of the web to ensure preservation and to make that data accessible for researchers in the future. This includes capturing and preserving websites containing images, information, videos, documents, and social media. This process can be done in several ways using a variety of different tools and software, from simple static screen captures to automated systems known as web crawlers that go out to capture data based on selected seeds and scoping parameters. More on that. Increasingly, the standard is to preserve websites in a way that captures their fully dynamic nature and how they were originally meant to be viewed as much as possible, as opposed to just doing screenshots that you're just kind of seeing static. Why web archiving matters? Today, information is increasingly found online. Content that was previously only available in print form is now only available online, and every day huge amounts of completely new web content is published. However, despite the internet seeming to make everything more accessible, it's important to understand that this content is in fact often more at risk than traditional print records. Online content can just as quickly vanish when commercial entities deem it's no longer valuable or support no longer exists for the organization that's hosting the content. Content's ever changing as websites receive new updates and redesigns, and older archives are simply deleted without a trace. So some key terms: a crawler or crawling. Web crawlers, also known as spiders or bots, are automated agents that work to index and capture web servers based on a specified seed URL and set parameters on how to harvest the data. They move through websites following hyperlinks to discover and download additional linked web content, including web pages, videos, images, and other data. These crawlers are especially designed to capture websites so they can be preserved and reproduced in their original interactive and dynamic form. Some examples are Heritrix, which is used by the Internet Archive and Archivit. It is an automated web crawler. And there's also Web Recorder, which is a bit unique. It's a browser-based web crawler that's user-driven, where the user is the one that's performing the crawl manually, directing the archiving process using the browser itself, which we'll see an example of. A seed or entry point URL is a web address or URL that tells the web crawler where to go on the web to start the crawl and start harvesting the data. Many automated crawlers, along with the seed, the archiver is also going to specify the scope based on how far that crawl should go. Should it just be that initial page? Should it be the whole website? Should it be beyond that, external websites, links to external websites? And then a key thing to know is WARC files. WARC file is a web archive file. It's the standard and internationally accepted file format container for preserving websites from web crawls in their original context. The International Internet Preservation Consortium is responsible for maintaining the WARC files format standard. WARCs are container files, meaning that they function similar to a zip file, where they wrap around various files that make up a website, including HTML, PDFs, MP3s, and other files. WARCs have a limit on how much data they can hold, so it usually takes multiple WARCs to store a single website, particularly larger ones. WARC files require special technology to replay them. You can't just open them in Word or something. Some examples include Internet Archive's Wayback Machine and the free and open source replay web page. Because of their standardization, WARCs are flexible, so they can be transferred between different web archiving tools, including the tools that we're about to go into discussing. So, while there are a wide variety of web archiving tools available, there's currently no single program that does everything perfectly. Many programs work well in tandem, filling gaps and weaknesses in others. In particular, tools that target social media capture are often very specialized and unique from traditional web capturing tools. Web content's kind of a moving target, and new tools and services are constantly being developed and updated to meet their ever-changing needs. Web archivists and their institutions must constantly evaluate these new tools and challenges to determine what tools work best for their specified level of resources, collections, and users, essentially determining what tools and workflows are good enough from what is available to them currently. So some general factors to consider if looking at software, thinking about open source versus proprietary, thinking about the level of community adoption, wider is generally better. What type of collections are you primarily collecting? Just websites or also social media? What level of staff resources and budgetary resources are you able to dedicate to the project or program? And what level of public access you're looking to provide? So talking about Archivit. Archivit is a web application that was created in 2006 as a branch of the Internet Archive, which was founded a long time ago in 1996. And it was established to provide web archiving subscription services to over 800 organizations in over 24 different countries. Archivit provides tools for crawling, preserving, describing, and providing access to web content that is selected and maintained by member institutions. So it's kind of like a curated version of Internet Archive. Like Internet Archive, collections are made freely accessible to the public through its Wayback Machine and public access platform. And the automated web crawler, which we mentioned, Heratrix, is currently the main web crawler that's in use by Internet Archive and Archivit. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my web browser. And so this right here is the Archivit public user interface. And basically, if you go here to archivit.org, you'll be able to see kind of like a library catalog of web collections with various institutions' web collections here. It has kind of featured some web collections that it kind of rotates through. And you can basically, you can search by collection, you can search by organization, you can search by website. And so it's got a very robust public access interface. So if we just went ahead and we searched for, say, elections, you can see right here, you're getting, it goes by collecting organizations, collections. So there's 618 hits here for, looks like this one's the Fiji election, a collection hosted by the National Library of Australia. And you can use various facets to sort of narrow these results down. If we clicked on this, we'd be able to see all the different seeds or websites that they've captured. Like this one's been captured 10 times between 2022 and 2023 that you can check out. They also, you can search amongst sites. And so this is going down to keyword searches for election and sites. We're going to go ahead and just look for University of Florida, since I'm most familiar with that. And oops, let me fix that typo there. And go back to collecting organizations. All right, so University of Florida, this is our page. So you can put a description for your organization, have a link going out to it. And again, so we have 29 collections currently. And a lot of these are from our institutions. So a lot of them are University of Florida websites, but others are from some of our collections, like the Jean Leedy relates to supports a architecture physical collection that we have. I was going to go into this COVID-19 Florida farm workers web archives here. And you can see there's more description that you can add, right statements, and various other metadata that you can add for collections. And then here are a number of seeds and websites that were crawled as part of that project, like this we count. So if I click here for captured 7 times, I can see kind of a graph. You'll be familiar with this if you've ever used Internet Archive, same thing. And you can sort of see and navigate to where those crawls are. Now, it can take a little bit of time to load some of these because they're loading websites. And for the interest of time, I've already kind of preloaded this one. So you can see here that this is the crawled version, the saved version of this website, and it looks exactly like you're operating with it on the live web. The only thing to remind you that it isn't is this little, you are viewing, this page in Archivit here. And so if I wanted to navigate around, all of these links, as long as you've crawled more than just a page, should be functioning, and you can kind of maneuver around on the web. So this is kind of navigating out and loading. And it loads a little bit slower than the live web because it's bringing everything up together for it. You'll also notice that if we go down to, say, we didn't crawl the Instagram page here, it's going to say, if you haven't crawled it, this page has not been archived here. So now I'm going to switch over to the staff side, or the back end, kind of show you how that works. So this is our staff side for our Archivit account, and it's based on an annual subscription. So you're given you choose a tier, and you basically have a data budget. So ours just kind of renewed. So we haven't used up our data budget, much of our data budget of 127 gigabytes. We've used about 420. In total, we've crawled, our collections make up 514 gigabytes. You can see a list of our collections here, and this is doing from this period forward. You can see when stuff was last crawled. You can create collections. Looking closer at the collections, you can see a little bit more information. If we go into the COVID-19 Florida farm workers, you can see that that collection has 24 gigabytes and about over 1 million documents. Here you can have settings where you can make it public or private. So if I made this private right now, you wouldn't be able to find it on that public side. You can look at these seeds here. So these are the different websites that were crawled, and you can make sort of adjustments here to make these public or private. You can specify frequency of crawls, so one time, or if you had a website at your institution you wanted to crawl frequently, you could set it to automatically crawl quarterly. If you had a private website that you were recording, you can put in login credentials. And then specifying seed type. So standard is kind of the domain name. So if you're crawling the entire website, you would use that. Or if you just want to crawl one page, or if you want to crawl one page or website plus external links, you have different ways that you can do that. You have areas that you can insert all sorts of extra detailed metadata for it, including custom fields. And you can even do even more advanced scoping with it. So if I wanted to crawl something, I could go into here, and let's use an existing seed. I would click on one, and I would just simply say run crawl. I could use test crawl or one-time crawl. Typically I use test crawl because that will crawl like a normal crawl, but it will not count against your data budget. And so if I ran this crawl and I limit it for a certain amount of days, it would just go. And then when it was completed, it would send me an email that says, hey, we finished crawling your website. Would you like to check it out? Check it out, do some quality control, make sure I got everything I wanted. If I didn't, I can just delete that crawl, no problem, do another crawl. Or if I was happy with it, I could say, yes, save it, and it will count against my data budget. Let's see, anything else I wanted to talk about here? We could take a look at a recent crawl report. So this is what you might get after you've test crawled something. You can kind of see the amount of documents and things that came in. You can also look at a breakdown of what different file types you got. So if you're expecting to see some videos and you didn't see them, then you could try and figure that out from there. But yes, that is Archivit, and I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint. And so talking about the advantages of Archivit, it is developed for medium to large scale web archiving projects and programs. It has a well-established history. It's widely supported and adopted by many academic organizations and the public at large. There's a very low barrier to entry because IT support for setup, hosting, and tech support, it's all included with the program and your subscription. There's a tiered cost structure with support, cost share, free trials, and discount options available for smaller institutions. They will definitely work with you. There's a wide array of tools to aid quality control work, metadata creation, and we saw robust scoping tools and automation. There's also a clear exit strategy. What's really nice is at any time, if you had to stop your subscription, they will still maintain your collections up there in perpetuity. So they won't go away. You can stop and start as you need to. And if you ever needed to get out of the system, go into another system, you can download your works at any time. There is also a great public interface and search tools. So there's high discoverability, as we saw looking at that public interface. There's options to restrict access. It also, I haven't utilized this, but it supposedly integrates well with ArchiveSpace and OCLC and other major software. There's the ability to upload and ingest work files from other websites into the system, like Conifer, which we'll talk about next. It has a hosted cloud storage solution, so you don't have to worry about your storage as much and your backups. It has widespread documentation, training resources, and really good tech support, which I've used a number of times. And it's continually updated and maintained. Some disadvantages are that the subscription fees required can be expensive. There is no free version available, though tiered pricing exists and there is a free trial. Automation is a double-edged sword. It's nice in that it can go out there and get those websites fairly quickly, fairly simply, and just kind of do it. But then that also means that you need to be doing some quality control work to check to make sure that everything worked out right. And it may lead to some excess data usage and issues like that. There's also been some cases where replays, playing it back after you've crawled something, hasn't been as functional, especially on social media. I think they're working on that right now. There's also no easy ability to shift a seed that you crawled between collections once you've established it. And it's primarily useful for capturing traditional websites and has some frequent issues with social media. In particular, it doesn't work for Facebook. Conifer, or Web Recorder, was originally developed as part of a multi-year research and development project to create a next-generation web archiving service from 2015 to 2020 under the name Web Recorder IO. The open source components are currently maintained independently by the Web Recorder project, with Rhizome, which is a nonprofit organization which preserves digital art, became the steward of it, and they renamed it Conifer. Conifer and Web Recorder are different from other web archiving projects in that, and crawlers, in that they don't automatically go out and do the crawls. Rather, they use a manual browser-based method of capture, which I will go ahead and share this again. So this is the public side of Conifer. It does not have the same extensive public user interface that, for instance, Archivit has. It's more a page that is given to you, and it can host the websites that you've crawled. This is a UF controlled public area. It's not from my department. I've mainly used Archivit, but they've shared this with me so I can show, for example. So if I click on this, I can go in, and just like with Archivit, I can see the crawled web page as if it was kind of live on the web, and I can navigate around and maneuver around with it. And I noticed that it is a little bit faster, I think, than Archivit, although it may just be that this website is not as complex as the one that I was clicking on. If we shift over to the staff side of this, now one nice thing about Conifer is that it does have a free account up to 5 gigabytes that you can just create. So I just created a free account, and up to 5 gigabytes. If you want more, then you'll have to pay. You can use it. So I'm going to show just an example of how this is used, because it's quite different from Archivit. And so I'm going to do a new capture of our Latin American and Caribbean collections departments or sections webpage. And so you just put in the link as a seed, and then I'm going to create a new collection, and I'll just say intro, and you can make it public or private, just like in Archivit. And now this specifies a browser is best used with, because that's how it's pulling it in, doing the crawl. And I'm using Chrome. Chrome and Firefox work best with it. I'm just saying use current browser. You can add some session settings, and then you can start the capture. And so what you're seeing here is it goes to that website, and up here it's starting to add up the data as it's crawling this page. And now it's not crawling links, it's just crawling what you see on the page. And so even as I scroll, especially as I scroll down here to the bottom, you'll notice that it's starting to add up more of that data because it's capturing what I'm seeing here. Now I can continue. And so say I wanted this page, I would click on this, and then it would start crawling this bit as well. And so that's how it kind of functions. And you can see where this is nice in that you can very manually specify what you specifically want. But if I was to want to crawl this entire page, it could take quite a bit of time. There's an autopilot feature, but it mainly just works as a self-scroller, so it'll just scroll down. I've noticed a few bugs with it. If I pause this and I go to browse this URL, so I'm just looking at it now, it's going to browse what I have crawled. So I can see what I've crawled here, and then I crawled this page, so I can see that. But then if I try to go somewhere else, it's going to say resource not found. And that's just because I haven't crawled that. You can do a patch crawl and just say, hey, can you go ahead and patch that? Can you add that in and crawl that in there? And then it will add it. Now, if I go back over here to Collection Manager, I can see all of the websites that I crawled as part of that. And you can see that it's creating a collection basically of this. And I can delete this entire collection if I wanted to, or I could download it as a WARC file. And I could even import it into Archivit. So they could work in tandem. It lists each grouping kind of as sessions. And so then it combines these sessions together so that you can navigate the web based on all the websites that you've crawled. One interesting thing is that if I wanted to delete one of these web pages, say I didn't want that bit as part of it, I would have to delete it based on sessions. So this patch crawl was separate. I can remove that separately. But if I wanted to do a little bit here, I would have to kind of recrawl the session. And I'm going to go ahead and switch back again to the PowerPoint. Get back. So advantages. Conifer was developed for archiving narrow slices of content. So it's really good for like small sections of websites and things that you really want to target. It has free options with a limited 5 gigabyte storage space. It's relatively inexpensive compared to something like Archivit. At higher tiers at around $200 per year for 40 gigabytes of storage, with options to add more storage, I think in increments of like 20 gigabytes. It can have a higher success rate on more dynamic web pages due to its browser crawling features. The manual crawls can also lead to reduced need for quality control, concerns about ethics and copyright issues. reduce duplication, and smaller impacts on data budgets because you're basically doing quality control as you go. It's very easy to use, low tech barrier for entry. There's some limited automation tools like we saw, although pretty limited. And it includes a public access option and the ability to download the work files, although smaller than Archivit. Some disadvantages: it requires a largely manual process of visiting a web page, which of course is time consuming and doesn't really function at scale. If we wanted to crawl that entire website, that could take quite a while. It's significantly less robust public interface. It doesn't have that same interface that Archivit has. It's more just like a place to link out from and to. There is an exit strategy that exists, just like Archivit, where you can download your work files. However, if your subscription, say you started a subscription, you went up to 40 gigabytes and then you stopped, they'll give you a 60-day grace period, but then you need to download your content out of there or they will remove it. So a local backup storage solution is likely needed. There are some browser limitations because it's functioning with the browser if you're not using like Chrome or Firefox. It's primarily designed for smaller organizations and smaller projects. It's not as widely supported and adopted as software like Archivit, and it's primarily useful, same thing with Archivit, for traditional websites, and it does have some issues when trying to capture social media. So moving on to considerations when planning a web archiving project or program. So some questions to ask yourself. What types of web collections are you interested in collecting? Are you interested in collecting institutional web archiving, just your institution's web pages, subject-based or event-based, based on key current events that will help strengthen your existing collection priorities, recent elections, natural disasters, social movements, etc. How do web collections that you're looking at fit within your existing collection policy and planning? Is there a gap in your collection or a priority topic where a web collection would add value? Are there existing collections in other forms that were only, maybe available in print, and then suddenly they've shifted to PDFs that are hosted via websites where this may be helpful? What web content should be included and what types of content should not be included? Is the creator of the website you're looking at significant enough on its own that the content should be nominated for inclusion, or maybe some other creator has similar resources, or they're just recycling resources from an original source that you should be crawling instead? Is the information contained within web content unique, or does it already exist in other forms within your collection, maybe print forms, or other websites that you've previously preserved? Thinking about these things when you're thinking about selection. Has the web content or similar content already been crawled or archived by another institution? It's usually a good idea to do some research on other web preservation websites like Archivit, Internet Archive, to see what other people are collecting and if they are already kind of collecting in that area. Also, if you have a website and then that someone's collecting in a particular area, maybe asking them, hey, maybe you'd be interested in this website and you can focus your resources elsewhere, because we can see by data budgets, it can be costly. And then also, what is the likely risk of the pages disappearing? For example, time-limited event or an organization that's smaller and could be under threat of closing is probably a bigger priority than a long-standing, well-supported organization that is unlikely to go away overnight. Also, what should be the level of capture? A single page or an entire website and possibly future links beyond that? What is the frequency of capture? Are you doing just a one-time crawl? Are you doing multiple crawls over a period of time, like quarterly or however? And how frequently, a lot of that's going to depend on how frequently the website that you're looking at is likely to add significant new content to make a difference. Consider copyright issues. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998, all materials published on the web, including social media posts, are protected by US copyright laws. Now, I know internationally, those laws may differ. It's important to investigate what those laws are. Social media posts are generally considered to be published when they are created, and their authors hold individual copyright. So that's each individual poster. Fair use generally provides allowances for the purposes of education and research, but determining what is exactly allowed can be complex. Also, ethical considerations, such as bias in selection, try to be representative in what you choose to preserve versus not preserve. Underrepresented community websites are often the records that are most at risk. Consider the right to delete. Not everyone understands that their web content has been published and may be preserved for all time. Also consider, particularly when you're thinking about younger people that are making posts in social media, or older people that aren't aware. Also consider the risk of erasure of history. There's a good argument that public figures and government entities should be held accountable for their actions instead of records simply disappearing and fading out from the historical record. Doc Now is a great resource, documenting the now. It has a lot of good information on ethics of web preservation, tools and strategies, especially regarding social media. When planning archiving projects, it's also important to take copyright, ethics, and access into consideration. In particular, the need to ask permission from copyright holders of websites and other web content before crawling, preserving, and providing access to that content. There are different options for how to address these concerns with varying advantages and disadvantages. The primary options being either opt-in or opt-out approaches. An opt-in approach is where a collecting institution doesn't crawl or provide access to web content without first obtaining permission from the website owner or copyright holder. Whereas an opt-out approach is where they do not ask permission first, but rather provide a very clear policy on their website and mechanisms for web content creators to ask for the removal of their content if they don't want it up there. A lot of decisions are based on a question of resources that are available, the scale at which the web project or program is operating, and the determination of level of risk of copyright and ethical issues arising from web collections in question. Also, you want to look into levels of access. Online access where content's up and viewable by all, typically either through a public interface like Archivit, or where WARCs are available to download by users. This is the least secure, obviously, in terms of copyright and ethical issues, but it is the least restrictive to researchers and the least resource intensive to maintain, and it functions well at scale. Local access, where access is only allowed through a moderated process, where you have a reading room where you say, hey, you can only view this website under our controlled computers with read-only access. That's the most secure in terms of copyright and ethical issues, but it's also more time consuming to manage and restrictive for researchers. A mixture of the two is often required or desirable based on your level of resources, and then also the content that you're choosing to preserve. Web archiving projects and programs are often resource intensive. They can consume large amounts of staff time and resources to purchase and maintain software, tools, subscriptions, and storage space. It's often difficult for archivists to make the case to administrators who control limited budgets to devote some of their resources to web archiving projects and programs. Strategies for making the case to your organization and administrators include sharing examples from peer institutions where there's kind of success stories and they can actually see, what content's being preserved and how they did it. Sharing trainings and inviting decision makers to conferences on web and digital archiving so they can learn. Propose limited pilot projects and make use of free trials that are offered by web archiving subscription services like Archivit, and especially Conifers. Tie proposals in, try and tie them in with existing mandates and collection policies, or when you get, say, a big collection that's maybe print related and you may get some resources to process that, try to see how web collections might tie into that, and how you could shift resources over for a pilot project there. Also, timing is everything. Try to time your proposals during key periods. So if you're collecting, if you're interested in collecting your institution's website, maybe when your organization's doing a big web redesign, that's a good time to say, hey, we could preserve some of this older stuff, or older ways that we presented things. When an organization in your institution's collecting area is closing, so collection that you have or a focus that you have, and you know that institution's closing, their website's going to be gone, now's the time to act. And also during pivotal events, just that are generally important to your institution's collecting policy, big elections, natural disasters, pandemics, all kinds of things are good times to start pilot projects and ask for support. So I've also included some additional resources on web archiving. Kind of scrunched them into this PowerPoint, but I'll also be putting them in the PDF and then, of course, in the web handbook that will be shared with you. So additional links on organizations and tools, Archivate, Conifer, Documenting the Now, and a few other social media related ones. Also good blogs, papers, guides, and other resources on web archiving. There's some really good resources in here. In particular, I really liked the ethics and archiving the web webinar that has been recorded and was done by the Met. And then also some examples of web archiving projects from Archivate, Conifer, Social Feed Manager, which we didn't talk about, but is an interesting project for particularly if you're archiving social media, and then also DocNow. And I guess I'll switch it over then to open discussion.